Welcome to the LeaderPass Studios executive series, Behind the Curtain of Leadership. I'm your host, Jamie Minton, and this show is all about the leaders behind companies and organizations, what makes them unique, and how they can potentially impact you. Today, we're honored to sit down with Dr. Kim Moore, an accomplished military veteran, transformational educator, and passionate advocate for leadership. From serving in the military for over 20 years, including roles at the Pentagon, to becoming a superintendent impacting countless lives in education, Dr. Moore's story is one of resilience, of purpose, and unwavering commitment to excellence. Let's dive into her extraordinary path and discover the lessons that define her leadership legacy.
I was the cadet that would not do anything that the cadet was asked to do. And as a result of that, I was rated the worst cadet at the bottom. I go see the sergeant major the next day, and he tells me, "You are the worst cadet. But what are you gonna do about it? You're a leader. People do follow you. Do you wanna use your leadership to help people, or are you gonna use your leadership for your own personal gain?"
So, Dr. Moore, welcome to LeaderPass Studios, and it's great to have you here for the executive series. And welcome from Columbia, South Carolina, is where you came from today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, I can't wait to dive into all these amazing things in your life that you've beginning, I guess, years ago in the Army. You were in the military, which is amazing. Now you've written a new book, and you're a grandmother of, was it 8 that I heard?
8 children.
All right, that's impressive.
8 beautiful, world-changing
World-changing.
individuals.
I love it. I love it. That's great. And you brought James, so I was glad to meet James
Yes.
today as well, and he's helped out a lot in so many ways. Thank you, James, for all of your help too. But we're here to talk about you, and I'd love to dive in and talk about what you do now, and then I want to go back and talk about maybe a little bit about your military, but thank you for your service
Well,
first.
thank you, and thank you for your support.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Of course. Of course. So what are you doing right now? You're in education currently.
Yes, I'm an educator, and I'm currently a superintendent of a large district in the southeast part of the United States.
Okay. All right, great. And how many years have you been doing that?
This is my second year.
Second year.
It's been a
Okay.
whirlwind
Okay.
experience.
Yes. Yes.
But I've been in education for over 20 years now.
Okay. Okay. And what for the previous 18 in education, just in administration, or do you teach?
So
Or
I've had a variety of jobs. I was a teacher,
okay.
a district resource teacher, meaning I went out from the district office to schools to support teachers.
Okay.
I then was promoted to a supervisor role, left that role, went back to a school to be an assistant principal where I oversaw discipline, moved up from that role to be the assistant principal for curriculum.
Oh wow.
So did
Okay.
master schedule and supported teachers with all of the curriculum that we use in the classroom. From there, I became a principal, a high school principal, one of my best jobs that I loved.
Okay.
Did that for 5 years, then moved back to the district office and was the director, and then an assistant superintendent, and now I'm a superintendent.
Wow. Well, congratulations. What a great career and a meaningful, amazing, space that you're in. And I bet you've seen a lot of changes over the years between technology and, of course, the pandemic.
Yes,
And,
yes, it's been a lot of changes.
Yeah.
But through it all, students have remained the same.
Have they? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. I appreciate that.
I know, because sometimes people think, oh, the kids today are so different than we were. No, they're really not different than we are
Mm.
when we were growing up. They just have different challenges and different opportunities than we had.
Yeah.
So that is the one constant, and that's what keeps me grounded in my role. I get to work with our kids,
That's awesome.
our students.
That is great. That is great. Did you know that when you were in the military? Were you thinking at some point, I'll go into education? Or
No, I did not.
Okay.
No, I did not. When I retired, a very good friend of mine, we were lieutenants together and had served together for our military careers, basically. And he retired before I did and became a teacher.
Okay.
And so after I retired, I spent about 2 years doing different things. I did a little work in corporate coaching and doing workshops and teaching things of that nature. But also I worked as a part-time salesperson
Did you
at a
really?
women's
Okay.
clothing store that I liked.
Okay.
So, which cost me more money than I made.
So not all deals, but you loved your product,
I
which is
loved the
good. All right.
product, and I
Good.
bought lots of it. So
Yeah.
my paycheck was left basically in the store.
I love it.
But talking with him, he had become a teacher.
Okay.
And he was like, you should be a teacher, Kim. And I'm like, why would I be a teacher? And we talked about what were some of the best jobs that I had when I was in the military while I was on active duty. And one of those jobs was being a basic training commander
Wow.
and
Okay.
then also being a platform certified instructor and writing field manuals, which is curriculum
There you
for
go.
the military.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
so he said, "You should be a teacher."
Wow.
And so I believe that was what God was calling me to be because I went and interviewed and they hired me, much to my surprise.
That's awesome. What did you do in the military? Like, how did you start there? Or what brought you into that arena?
Well, that's a fascinating story because I never intended to go into the military. My father served, and so when I was a freshman in college, my father was a helicopter crew chief, and so I wanted to ride in a helicopter. And my friends, the upperclassmen, told me that ROTC was an easy A. And I was a science major and
Okay.
said, "You're going to need that because you're going to be doing a lot of work with biology and chemistry and physics. You need an easy A." So I joined ROTC, and my goal originally was to just do 3 years, get out, and then apply for the FBI Academy and become an agent and do CSI work,
Very
like the
cool.
TV
Yeah, of
show.
course. Of course.
And but somewhere along the line in college, I found out that I really, really enjoyed being in the military and was commissioned as a second lieutenant and served my country for 20 years.
Wow. That's amazing. What specific field was it in the military that you
So
did?
I'm a scientist by degree.
Okay.
That's my college degree. So I went into the field back when I went in, it was called NBC, Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Warfare, Weapons of Mass Destruction.
Hmm.
And so that's my MOS, that's my area of expertise.
Hmm.
Um, and I had the privilege in my 20 years of serving in a variety of roles. But my last job was at the Pentagon where I served on the Army staff, and this was during Gulf War syndrome.
Mm.
So I did a lot of work around that, and then moved to the Secretary of Defense's staff, where I served on in the Office of Negotiations and was a part of the team that did the negotiations for the ban against chemical weapons.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
so,
Okay.
we did all of the back work to prepare the people that sat at the table and actually did the negotiation with our allies.
Wow, that's amazing. So your science kind of brought you into that space, and then your people skills, your leadership skills, you had to
Mhm.
have learned. And I always think that, and of course, you were in that space.
Yes.
Leadership has probably followed you everywhere since those early days.
It has. One of my passions in life has been leadership since I was a child, leadership and education. And it's amazing how God has led me through my career and my multitude of experiences to the point where in my current job, that's what I do. I'm a leader in education.
Yeah, that's amazing. A great blend of that.
Yes.
Can you think back early days when you think about, I don't know if it was military or if it was school or if it was afterwards. I think of that era would have been kind of when leadership started to really take
Mhm.
shape, meaning the content or speakers and authors began to kind of birth out of that time. Did you have any early books or any early mentors that inspired you?
Well, one of my mentors is a friend of both of ours, and that's Dr. John
Of
C.
course.
Maxwell.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I read John's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, as a young lieutenant. And it just changed my world because I've always been passionate about leadership
Mm.
and I always knew I was a leader. My grandfather told me that early in life that I was a leader. And so that book helped ground my leadership and combined with the extensive leadership that the military provided to me, it became my way of work and it defined me as a leader.
That's awesome. How did your grandfather tell you that you were a leader? What's the memory there that you
So my grandfather was a major person in my life, a significant person. And every holiday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, he had 7 children, 6 girls and 1 boy. I had 26 first cousins between all of them, and we would spend every holiday at my grandfather's house. Now, his house was a small, like, shotgun-style house, so imagine all of these children running around in, the living room area. My grandfather would be in his recliner, and he would always say to me, to the whole group, he would say very loud, "Kim and my cousin Jackie, lower your voice." there's a lot of other kids in the room. And I'm like, so one day I finally asked him, I said, Grandpa, why do you always pick on me? You always say, Kim and Jackie, lower your voice. He said, because Kim, you're a leader. Your cousins follow you. And I wasn't the oldest cousin, but he said, they follow you. And so when you lower your voice and you sit down, they sit down,
No,
the younger ones.
I love it.
And so he was basically telling me I was a leader. And so once he explained that to me, I was already in ROTC at that point. It was like, oh, it clicked for me that I am a leader
Mm,
and that people do listen when I speak and look to me for guidance.
I love that. It's amazing what a blessing from a grandfather or a father or mother, grandmother can do and the seeds that plants.
It does.
Recognizing natural
Yeah.
ability, of course,
Yes.
but also that probably sowed a good seed in your life.
It did
Yeah.
because it brought to my attention that I had a choice. I could use my leadership in a positive direction, or I could use my leadership in ways that would benefit me and not serve others.
Mm. So you go into the military. You were already in ROTC at that time.
Yes.
So then, did you discover through that process anything that would kind of reinforce leadership in your life?
Well, yes, I did because in my first year of being in ROTC, I was actually rated the worst cadet in the entire
No,
cadet cadre.
are you
Yes,
serious?
I was
Okay.
because I was not using my leadership for the benefit of anybody else, only for my own self. And so I was the, let's say, the cadet that would not do anything that the cadet was asked to do, that did not resonate with me as far as like, hmm. So they would ask us to do things because we were the freshmen. So I'll give you an example. They would like for us to clean the weapons in the armory when we went out and did our firing exercises. And my standard response was, no, I don't do that.
Straight up, just no.
Yes, that's what
Okay.
I would say. I'm
Okay.
not going to clean other people's weapons. I didn't fire that. Right. And so that was a pattern for me.
Mm,
And as a result of that, I was rated the worst cadet at the bottom of the entire cadet
wow.
cadre, which hurt my feelings um, because I was a young person at that time. I went to college when I was 16.
Okay.
And so I called home, called my mother crying, and she was not very kind to me. She was very motherly.
Hmm.
And she said, "Are you done?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I'm done." And still my voice is cracking and wavering. And she said, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go see the sergeant major because they're wrong." I go see the sergeant major the next day, and he tells me, "You are the worst cadet." And basically, he said to me what my grandfather told me. He said, "You have a choice, Kim. You're a leader. People do follow you. So what are you going to do about it? Do you want to use your leadership to help people, or are you going to use your leadership for your own personal gain?" Well, that made me angry. And I said to him, "I will show you that I am not the worst cadet." And so I went from the worst cadet to the best cadet. In my senior year, I was the first female cadet commander. I won every leadership award, and it set me on that path to recognize that leadership is a privilege. It's not a right. And therefore, we should honor that privilege as leaders. So between my grandfather and being rated the worst cadet, um, that set me on the right path.
Mm. And you had it in you, obviously, because that could have gone one of two ways.
It could have.
Continue to rebel and quit,
Hmm.
or take a new direction. And you were empowered, you were inspired, which says a lot about you. So, what that's awesome. That's a great
Thank
story,
you.
and it's something that you look at now when you think about, or I picture you staying in the military all those years now in school. Do you recognize that pattern? And I mean, you're around so many kids. You have
Yes.
to. I'm sure you see that.
I see it in kids every day.
Mm,
We are so blessed to have a generation of young leaders in our schools. And I talk to them about leadership. In fact, yesterday I was actually in a classroom, a science classroom, because I taught science, ninth grade science, when I was a teacher. And one of my teachers invited me to come and spend some time in his classroom, which I love doing. We did an experiment, which gets me back to my science roots. But I also talked to the students about my journey because many of them were wondering, well, how did I get to where I am today? And was that a straight path? And it wasn't. It was a path with many turns, a lot of ups and downs, and that's just life as an adult. That's what we all deal with. But I shared with them my ROTC experience,
Mhm.
which they thought was funny. I told them it wasn't funny because I was very hurt by that experience, but I also stressed to them the lessons that I learned from that and how those lessons continue to shape me today as a leader,
Mm.
as well as the lessons I learned through the military and then as an educator.
Mhm.
And one of the questions that they asked me at the end was, which of the two did I enjoy most or felt that has been the most rewarding for me?
Which of the two meaning your
Careers.
careers?
So
Okay.
my
Yep.
military career
Yep.
or my teaching career.
Okay.
And I told them that I loved my military career. It was truly the best fit for me, for my personality, my temperament, my gifts that God has blessed me with. And serving our country and protecting our freedoms is an honor and a privilege. However, being an educator, I shape the future because every career field comes from
So
K-12
true.
education.
So
We
true.
all start there.
Yep.
And it's what we do in K-12 education that sets people on their path and the journey to fulfill their dreams.
Mm.
And so by shaping the future, we have a larger impact as educators.
Mm. And that's such an important message that I can imagine you telling your teachers that
Yes.
because they are the ones that are impacting those future leaders and those young people who will be in these different fields in industry.
It's critical.
Mm.
We have to let our faculty and staff know that they are valued and that what they do every single day is making a difference. I just did our State of the District address this past week, and I talked about growth, change, and resilience, having a marigold mindset. And the reason for that is because marigolds are companion flowers and they will help other flowers bloom. They are year-round flowers. They're part of the dandelion family. That's the scientist in me,
Go. Yeah.
compared to a walnut tree. And so if I were to ask you, which would you prefer to be, a walnut tree or a marigold, most people will say a walnut
Walnut tree.
tree
Yeah.
because it's strong and sturdy and tall and beautiful, but it's toxic. It kills everything around it. That's why you don't see any grass or flowers or anything growing around a walnut tree. So, as educators, what I ask my teachers and my faculty and staff members is, do we want to be walnut trees or marigolds? Do we want to be toxic, strong, and sturdy, or do we want to be that companion flower that helps other people bloom? And well, of course, we want to be marigolds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're beautiful and they help, they're pollinators. That's what we want to do because we are helping our students grow.
Mm.
We don't want to be strong and sturdy and stand alone. We're here to facilitate the future through the students that we have the privilege to educate.
I love that, helping them grow, which is amazing. That's a great, but you said mindset. So I start
Mhm.
thinking it's how you're thinking and how you look every day when you walk, and maybe the lens you look through as a marigold
Yes,
coming in as a teacher.
yes.
So do you feel like when you think, so 20 years in education, lots of changes, lots of people have come and gone. Every time I picture you maybe getting up for something like that in front of your people, I picture you trying to really espouse that. And that comes from both the leadership, but also you've probably been around some that were toxic and probably have seen the opposite of that
Mhm.
as well, from both military, education, maybe school. And when you do, and when you encounter that now as a leader, how do you deal with that? How do you combat that?
Well, we combat that by we create conditions of success, right? We want to create a condition, a culture where everyone feels like they are valued but are held accountable,
Mm.
right? And for me, culture is very simple. It's what we allow to happen.
Mm.
So in the military, we have a culture. We know what we're expected to do.
Right.
We know what we're expected to wear. We know when we're supposed to be where we're supposed to be. We know these things. But that culture still is built around service to our country, but more importantly, service to each other. And so when I talked to people about being a military officer, they always ask me because most people don't understand
Right.
that. They know what they see in the war movies.
Sure.
And so they would ask, well, why would someone want to do something where people are shooting at you or, could cost you your life? And it's a call to service. But what I always explain to them is while we do serve our nation and we put our uniform on to do that, when using those old analogies, when we're in the foxhole, I'm there for the person next to me, and the person next to me is there for me.
Mm.
So I've got their back, they have my back. I fight for them, they fight for me. It is a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a family. And that's the culture that we breed in the military through everything that we do. And so I try to bring those types of principles into my area of organization around what are we doing to serve each other. So if you are my buddy teacher next door and you are out sick, we may have a guest teacher coming in to take care of the class that day, but I'm going to come and check on your students for you.
Mm.
I'm going to make sure that everything is set up so that your class runs smoothly, and I'm going to expect that you do that for me too. That's the culture that we want to create for the adults in the building so that we can better serve our students. But what I remind my leaders is culture is what we tolerate. So if I accept this today, then next week it'll be the same thing. If it's not what I want, then I don't need to accept it the first time and I don't need to allow it
Wow. Out of the gate.
out
Out
of
of
the
the gate.
gate.
Wow. Do you find, because you've got such good experience in a culture, or you're around that kind of a culture, the foxhole mindset culture, is that a big leap for your teachers? Is that a big leap for people, or do they get it
They
pretty
get it
quickly?
because I take that same experience, but I reshape it
Mhm.
to a perspective that they can connect with.
Mm.
And that's the buddy teacher. That's helping each other. That's taking care of our team within our department, within our school, and within our district. And so I talk about our family. We are our family because most of us spend more time at work than we do
It's
at
true.
home
Yeah.
with our family.
Mhm.
And so, who wants to work in an environment where you don't like people or they don't like you? That's not a healthy culture, and that's not a healthy environment. So when we think about working conditions as leaders, what are we doing every single day to create an environment where people want to work and want to do their best work?
Mm. That's amazing, and that's gonna obviously trickle down to the kids,
Of
to
course,
the parents, I would imagine, as well,
parents and to the community,
and to the community. Yep.
because we do not educate students in isolation. And we're not solely responsible for their education. Parents are the first educators for children, and therefore they are partners in that work with us. But also, the community is a partner in that education
Mm.
because our goal is to raise up the next generation, the next workforce for our community.
Mm.
So we have to work with our community, and our community needs to work with us to ensure that we're raising good citizens that will be successful once they leave us.
Hmm. Well, I love it. So you've got this marigold mindset. You have a lens you look through with the future generation that you're touching every day and helping them be molded into what they're going to do. And then you're also helping your teachers see things that way, and then create this great culture. That's a absolute winning combination. I love it. We think about the difference after pandemic and watching the kids come in. I've got relatives that are teachers active right now, and the difficulty that's been
Yes.
in a whole group of young kindergartners and first graders who didn't have the social
Hmm.
handles, if you will, to operate, and hopefully seeing that change and grow. Have you seen anything with that landscape?
This is a national issue that we're dealing with, and research is telling us that it's going to take about 10 to 12 years for the effect of COVID to make its way through the educational system
Wow.
for the reason that you just stated. Many of our pre-K students, our kindergarten students, and first and second grade students did not attend school to learn those social um, requirements
Mm.
around regulation and how do we behave. You know, there's a wonderful book that says everything I needed to know I learned in
Yeah, I
kindergarten.
remember that one.
And it's
Yeah.
true. A
Yeah.
lot of what you learn in kindergarten, you still do once you move up through your senior year of high school. And so because of that, we are still making adjustments to not only address behavior, but also to close that academic gap
Mhm.
for those students that did not get that early foundation that they needed to be successful.
Shows you how critical that is.
It is.
Probably for some teachers too,
It's
because
very,
even
it's,
entry-level teachers as they come in.
yes, it's
Yeah.
very challenging for our educators. But as we always do, we rise to the occasion and we are committed to doing everything that we can to ensure that our students are set up for success.
Yep, yep. So, talk briefly about your, I know you did some coaching, you said. You got certified with our friend, John Maxwell and his organization, which is wonderful. Is that something you're continuing to do, you see doing in the future?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I see doing in the future. I don't do as much of it right now, but I am a certified coach, leadership coach. I'm a founding member of John's
Cool.
coaching uh, group, and I joined that organization because of the impact that John had on me through his books. And I thought, what better person to learn from to hone my skills and my passion for leadership. And so while I'm not as active with the coaching part, I still write a weekly blog post around leadership and education. I've just written a book geared around leadership and strategies to help women in particular, although the book can be used by men too,
Mhm.
to help them when they are entering in that role of leadership. Because I titled the book, You're in the Leadership Chair, Now What? We think we know what to do, but when we get in that chair, when we sit down and that responsibility is placed upon us, it then becomes very challenging sometimes. And I've found through my career, through my personal experiences, and through coaching other uh, women, that we sometimes struggle with confidence,
Okay.
which to me is the secret sauce of leadership, is to be confident. You will make mistakes as a leader. Mm, We all do, but it's how we handle those mistakes that makes a difference. And being confident that I am in that chair for a purpose, for such a time as this.
Mm,
I have the skills needed to do the job. I can do the job.
mm.
And so I provide strategies to help set them up for success.
I love that. I can't wait to talk more about the book. But where do you get your confidence? I mean, obviously, we went way back in your past and said, it started with your grandfather and reading the books and being around all the different leaders you have been. But
Mhm.
where do you derive that confidence?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a woman of faith.
Okay.
And so I know that God has placed me here for a purpose, and He has equipped me with what I need to be successful. And so I rely on that. My faith gets me through a lot of ups and downs
Mm,
that I've had throughout my life.
mhm,
I'm blessed to have a very, very supportive husband
mhm.
who um, will be honest with me. Sometimes when I don't want to hear it, he will
Yep.
still tell me the truth.
Yep.
But he is such a supporter that I am just truly blessed to have. I have a strong group of uh, female friends,
Okay.
a prayer group.
Okay.
We call so they help me
Are they all
because
local or are they?
no, we were local when we started,
Okay.
but now we're all in different places. So one's there in Georgia, one's in New Jersey, one's in Florida, and I'm in South Carolina.
Wow.
But we stay connected, and it helps me to be grounded in my work
Hmm.
as a leader because I can always go to that group and they will be truthful with me also.
That's awesome. Did you find that group are all in the same field and
No,
or different disciplines?
we're
Different.
all in different disciplines.
Mm,
One is in ministry, one is in pharmaceutical sales,
okay.
and one is in is a financial advisor and does philanthropy work, and giving.
Yeah. We've been talking a lot about in our circles the importance of community,
Mhm.
vocational community, faith community. Where did you guys meet or how did you start that? Just curious, how did that group
We
form?
met through church.
Okay.
We
Okay.
all went to the same church,
Hmm.
and that's how we initially met and were connected. it's important as leaders, especially as leaders, that we do have outside groups, inner circles or kitchen cabinets, whichever term you prefer,
Mhm.
that are people who will come alongside us and that we can support and help them, and they can support us and help us.
Mm. The trust is
And trust
crucial
is
with that.
foundation
Yeah.
of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have faith, you have knowing you're here for a purpose, you have a great supportive spouse. How do you do you ever look at your past accomplishments and hold on to some of those, or do you let
I
those be where
do.
they are?
I
And
do. Having been the first in many areas of
Mhm.
my life, I know that I was the first. I got through that. I was successful. So I can do this again.
Mm,
And so that helps me to know that I'm the first in my school district, the first African American female superintendent.
okay.
And so once again, I can go back to thinking when I was the first female cadet commander, when I
Mm,
was the first female principal of the school that I was the principal of, being the only female officer in on staff in my different jobs because there weren't that many females at that time.
mm,
So those experiences has given me the confidence
mhm.
to walk in this blessing that God has given me to be the leader.
Mm. Do you shy when you see those obvious firsts? Do you recognize it and go, okay, do I want to step into this role, or do you just kind of tackle it? Because I mean, you just named 7 things, I think, where it was the first this, first that.
I think it's my personality that I've been
Hmm.
blessed to
Okay.
have
Okay.
to be an advocate.
Yeah.
So when I see opportunities that give me that opportunity or the privilege to advocate, I do take advantage of it. And so there's always reflection
Hmm.
because I don't want to be in a position where it's not a good fit for my skill set and not a good fit for the organization.
Hmm.
And so I make sure that when I'm looking and exploring opportunities, I do consider how is this going to work because it needs to be a win-win
Yeah.
for everyone,
Right. Not just to be the first,
not
for you
just
to
to be
say
the
I'm the
first.
first.
No.
Back to your grandfather who
Yes.
said, "Why are you leading?" Right?
Right.
Yeah, I love that. How do you encourage other women who might be facing being the first in a scenario? How do you encourage them, and what do you tell them to get them to either take that step or borrow some of your confidence, perhaps that maybe you've coached or that you're around?
So when I coach, I help them see in their past the things that led up to where they are today.
Their story. Okay.
How did they get to this point?
Mm,
Because you've had to have success
true.
to get to this point.
To be asked. Yeah.
So it's getting them to reflect on the things that they've already done and for them to recognize they have the skills necessary to perform the job.
Mhm.
They have the talent. They are ready to take this role. And even when they get there, what are we going to do to ensure success
Mhm.
and help them understand that what got you there will not keep you there.
Okay.
So there are things that you're going to have to make adjustments for and new things you're going to have to learn and grow in that role, but also recognizing that you're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. It's how we handle the mistakes that are the things that determine our success. And we just walk through it. So I help them paint a picture and give them a roadmap that they can then use as they are navigating um, the move.
Love it. I love that. If you think back to military, X number of years ago, early school, business conversations, decisions, being the first, especially as a woman of color, as you go back into that time, has that changed, or have you seen some of the same mindsets and the same battles, or because there's certainly way more examples than you probably had back then.
Well,
You
yes,
being
there
one of
are.
those. You being one of
Yes,
those
there are
examples.
more
Yeah.
examples,
Yeah.
and there are still some challenges out
Okay.
there. Is it better? Yes, it is better, but there's still challenges, and we have to make sure that we are modeling the behavior that we expect from other people.
Mm,
And so, even as the only female officer on staff, my colleagues recognize that one, I belong here. Two, I know just as much as you do,
right. Right.
maybe more.
Yeah.
And three, I'm here to do my job. and I do my job well. And so because of that, I earned the respect of my colleagues and it wasn't an issue. And I do the same thing today, is that I want people to know that I'm here because I'm qualified to be here.
Mhm.
And I am committed to the work and I do my work with excellence. And excellence is the standard for me in everything that I do is excellence.
That's awesome. And that grounded confidence, the way you
Mhm.
describe confidence, because of those, those opportunities you have there is probably, that's why you said that's your foundation. I mean, that's why that's so important.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But that's why growth, change, and resilience, having that marigold mindset is so important because we never stop growing. Just because you reach this level doesn't mean that you stop growing. You still need to continue to enhance your skills and put more tools in that toolbox that you have because the challenges are greater the higher you go up.
Mm, mm. It's kind of going back to the title of your book, which is now you're in the leadership chair.
Mhm.
Now what? You got to that position. Now what? Talk me through the beginnings of that book. Why did you name it that, and why'd you write it?
Well, I wrote it because of what you just asked me the previous question around how can I better serve and help more people? And John talks about this too.
Mhm.
John Maxwell, he talks about why he started writing books was so that he could help more people because I can't reach everyone in the world
Right.
with a face-to-face conversation, but I can do that through my writing. And so I started with writing a blog post. So I've been writing a blog post now for 12, 13 years
Okay.
to share my experiences and perspectives and to help people to grow. And out of the blog post, my husband encouraged me to write a book because many of the clients that I worked with or that I met, people I mentored would say, you should write a book. And I'd be like, no, that's too much work.
Mhm.
But having written the blog post, it was easier then to transition to the book. So why the book? Because today we have the opportunity and the privilege to see many young women enter into the world of leadership. And I want to help set them up for success. I want them to learn from my mistakes that
Sure.
I made, and I've made plenty of them, but also give them information that they can use that is applicable immediately.
Mm.
And that's something that I learned from John Maxwell because his books are very practical books that you can use to help you put into effect immediately. And so in this book, I give strategies
Okay.
from basic things like your wardrobe
Okay.
to creating your inner circle to having challenging conversations with individuals because we must hold people accountable for their actions, support, encourage, but also accountability. And it's designed to help them be successful so that they don't make some of the mistakes that I made.
That's great. And so you're almost imagining this person or this young woman entering into the workforce. She's gotten a new position, and this is going to be probably part of her toolkit that she'll
Mhm.
have to do that to equip her. How did you begin the book? Like, how do you start that conversation?
It's based upon my many years of coaching and mentoring other leaders,
Yeah.
from young leaders to senior leaders. I just recently had a very great conversation with a friend of mine who is going to be a superintendent in the state that I'm serving in.
Okay.
And so she's a phenomenal leader coming from Florida, but this would be her first superintendent opportunity, just like me. And she called me and we had a great coaching conversation over the phone and we talked about some of the things that she would be encountering and what would be expectations and roles and responsibilities. And so how do I help people, women in particular, know what they need to know and set them up for success? And that's my whole purpose. I want them to be successful. I want them to lead a life of significance through the work that they're doing.
What is the like? Imagine I pick up your book, which I'm excited you brought it. I'm gonna dive in. What do you open with in the book when you think about how'd you decide? Was it a story? Did you just jump right into a scenario of where we're at in the world today? How'd you open your book?
Well, it starts with a story. I use a lot of stories.
Okay. Well, you got a lot of them. That's why I'm like, I hope you're putting some of these in the
I
book.
do
You know,
use a
good.
lot of stories
Yeah.
in the book because we learn best through other people's experiences. And so I want them to understand my heart and why I wrote this book and the benefit that I think it will have for them as leaders for them. So I
Mhm.
do start with stories.
Good. Good. You got a lot of great ones and tie them in. Do you talk about marigold in there?
I
Marigold
don't talk
mindset?
about
All right,
marigold
good. So
in
that'll
there.
just be here. The people are like, I want more of that.
That'll be in
Yeah.
the next book.
Yes. Okay, good. Good, good. And then when you, I'm going to go back to something you said with, this young woman who's entering in, and you're going to help her be aware of what they are up against. What would be
Mhm.
the first thing you tell them in that scenario as a coach, if she got into her new position at her company or at wherever she works? What's a hurdle that you start off with?
The first thing I would say to this young lady or older lady is, why are you here? What is your purpose? Because if our purpose is not aligned with the job, it's not going to be a good fit. And so, what is your purpose? So I always talk about my North Star. What is my North Star? Because that's what grounds me as a leader. My North Star is students. I love adults. I need them to, can't do the job without them, but I make decisions based upon students. So my North Star is what is best for students. And every decision I make, I always go back to, how is this going to impact the student in the long run? So what is your purpose? And how is that going to guide the work that you're going to do? And you have to be very clear about that, because you're coming into the organization maybe as a new person or someone who's already worked in that organization and has been promoted.
Mm.
People are looking at you. And we know that you get about 90 days of positional leadership. And then people begin to wonder. So you need to come in prepared to lay out what your vision is, what your expectations are. Everything, though, should be grounded in, what is your North Star? What is your purpose?
I love that. Do you find that people have a tough time answering that question?
Yes, they do. Because sometimes we pursue opportunities because we want a title, or we want the pay, or we want the privileges that go along with that position. And then we get the position and we're not happy because it doesn't align with our values and it doesn't align with our purpose. That's not good for the person and it's not good for the organization. So I like to encourage people to know what their purpose is, and to every position you look at, align it with your values before you make that decision. And so when you get there, you model what you expect, which is your purpose.
I love that. I want to talk to the veterans transitioning who may have been in a career with a purpose,
Mhm.
and you certainly did. You certainly had purpose. Do you find that you're taking that purpose even within, let's just say, the military, all the different roles you played? Did you have to reset that purpose, or was it a constant, purpose throughout?
I like that question. Thank you. Um, it was a constant, but I didn't know that.
It was a constant. Okay.
So when I retired from the military, I would love to say the transition was smooth, but it was not.
Mm.
For 20 years, I knew who I was dependent upon the uniform that I put on every day. And so when I retired, it was a big shock. I was no longer Lieutenant Colonel Moore. I no longer had a parking spot. I no longer could go into the pharmacy on post and go in front of everybody else because I was in uniform. It was the question I asked myself was, who am I if I'm not the person with the rank on my collar?
Wow.
I had to figure that out. And it took me a while to do that. And my husband was very helpful in helping me understand that the skills that I had honed in the military were transferable to a civilian job. It was just a different language that we needed to use. And so as I went through my transition, I had to figure out what I wanted to do. So I did several informational interviews. I thought I wanted to work in a private bank and do investment banking because I was thinking about the title, the privilege, and the financial
Yep. Yep.
incentive of doing that.
Yep.
It wasn't a good fit. From the informational interview, I figured that out.
Mm.
Another opportunity I looked at was being a host on Home Shopping Network because I love to shop. And I thought I could talk to people about shopping. I do that with my friends all the time. Once again, figured out that's not a good fit
Yeah.
for me. And so finding education was the right fit for me.
Mm.
And then as I reflect on it, I could see God's hand guiding me
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
through through that pathway and that journey. And so the things that I loved about my military career and the jobs that I had that I really, really enjoyed all led to teaching. And so it fulfilled that passion that I had for leadership and education. So it took me a while to figure it out, but I got there.
But you got there.
I got there.
And it was and finding that purpose sounds like it makes all the difference in the world for you.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And that's why I emphasize purpose so much when I work with clients or individuals I'm mentoring
Mhm.
around what is your purpose? What is it that you want to achieve? Because you will find that if you follow that, you will find out that you will be very fulfilled
Mhm.
because chasing dollars, titles, privileges doesn't bring us happiness.
Mhm. But when you do succeed, you succeed
You
because
succeed.
then it all works.
Right.
Impacts everyone. Back to your book, and I'm thinking about now women who are business leaders right now who are questioning why they do what they do, or they're now asking themselves, what is my purpose? I've been looking for my purpose. Maybe it was tied to the title, maybe it was tied to the pay, or they thought it was.
Mhm.
Do you encourage women in those positions to stop, reflect, figure it out, and stay where they are, or do you oftentimes say, hey, be open for where the next chapter is? Because you certainly had these chapters of your
Mhm.
life that are distinct and they kind of hold their own community and their own successes and their own accomplishments, and then you've got these new ones. How do you have them look at that?
So, first off, as a coach, I never tell them what to do. The answer is always inside of us.
Mhm.
It's just helping them pull it out. I ask a lot of coaching questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? If you could do anything, what would you do? So, if money is not an issue, what would you do? Because when you take those constraints that we tend to put around situations, then we begin to think about other opportunities. So it may be beneficial to stay where you're at, but look at another position that's better aligned with what your goals
Where
and
you are, yeah.
aspirations are and your skill set. It could be moving to a different organization. It could be starting your own
Hmm. Hmm.
business, right? It just depends on what you are looking for and what is your purpose that you are trying to pursue. What is the goal that you want to achieve? And how is that aligned with your values?
Mm.
Because if you tell me your value is family, but you're working 80 hours a week, is that in alignment? And I just ask questions. I let them do the thinking. And I do coach men too. I let them think about what's the real value here
Hmm.
that you are demonstrating? Because in 18 years, 20 years, when your child leaves the home, goes to college, what is it that you want in that relationship with your child? Because it doesn't start at 20, it starts at birth or
Yeah.
before birth. So it's just helping people to understand what they want. There's nothing wrong with working 80 hours if that brings you joy and fulfillment
Hmm.
and it's what you want and it's aligned with your purpose and your values.
That's awesome. The complete package there.
Yes.
When you were, in regards to your book, on that note, when you think about the 12 years of blogs, 12 years, you said?
Yes,
You've been
over
writing
12 years.
over 12 years of blogs. And then that would probably not fit in one book, is my
No,
guess. So how did you select what was going to fit into this book based on this audience?
a lot of prayer
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and a lot of guidance from my husband. And then thinking about basic things that any leader would want to know,
Okay.
from a leader that is an individual who's aspiring, a woman who's aspiring to be a leader, who's currently a leader, or a senior leader. What would be the basics that you would need to know to set you up for success? So that's how I pick the chapters that are in the book, the different topics that are in the book.
Does one come to mind that would kind of meet all three of those uh, types of avatars of people?
Uh, yes, it's the chapter on your inner circle,
Okay.
because your inner circle is a group of people who are there to support you and you support them, but they're also there to help you grow, to be a safe space for you to be able to, uh, vent to when you need to help you get back in the game when it gets tough and things are not looking great because whatever whatever happened. They're there to support you, and that is so important. It's a trust
Mhm.
for you and for those individuals that are in your inner circle. We all need that,
Mhm.
especially when you're in that leadership chair, because everyone looks to you and everyone takes their cue from you. And sometimes our egos can get a little inflated by that we are the person that people are coming to. And so we need a little check sometime from other people to let us know that "Mm, that wasn't a good decision." And so, my inner circle does that for me. And I'm very blessed to have them because they will ask me those probing questions around, well, what were you thinking when you made that decision?
So
Why?
back to that accountability. Yeah.
Yes, back
Yeah.
to the accountability.
Mm.
And that's critical because that's part of being successful.
So speaking of our good friend, Dr. John Maxwell, and your new book, he has a pretty incredible endorsement, both on the book cover, I think,
Hmm.
and also he did a video. So I'd love to play that video right now for viewers to hear what he thinks about you.
Hey, John Maxwell here. I'm excited to endorse the book that Kim Moore has written, You're in the Leadership Chair. Now what? To the inspiring female leaders in my audience, listen up. My friend Dr. Kim Moore knows what it takes to get a seat at the table, and her experience will inspire you and her advice will challenge you. That's why you need to get her book, You're in the Leadership Chair. Now what? And while you're at it, pick up a few more copies for your close friends who want to be taken seriously as leaders. I can't wait for you to be changed as a result of reading this book.
Thank you, Jamie. John has been such an important mentor in my life throughout my military career, through his books, but then to be a part of his coaching team. He has truly blessed me in so many ways. I have learned so much from John, and I am so grateful. I know he doesn't endorse a lot of books, and so it's a privilege to me that he would take time to do that for me.
Absolutely. Very special. Very
Very,
special that
very
you'll have
special.
forever. That's
Yes,
that's amazing.
forever.
I'm sure those lessons that you've learned from John, lessons you've learned over the years, have carried you through some challenges.
Mhm.
Have there been any recent challenge that you've dealt with that you want to
Well,
tell us about?
yes. How I got this job that I currently have. So, my husband and I had planned to go on a safari. COVID hit, and we had to delay our trip. And so we finally were able to go on our safari. But before we were scheduled to leave, I had been doing interviews to look for superintendent opportunities in Florida, which is where we were living. I came across this advertisement for the position that I'm in. It was about 4 days before it was scheduled to close. And I brought it to my husband's attention, and I thought about it, and I said, "Oh, we're getting ready to go on vacation. I don't really have time to put together an application package. I don't think I'm going to apply." And my husband did a little research, and he came back to me. He said, I think this is the right position. It meets all of the requirements that you said that you were looking for. We should we should put the package together." And I'm like, "No, I don't have time." He goes, "We've done it in less than 2 days, wife. We can get it done." I said, "Okay." I submitted my application the day before we left for South Africa. We go on vacation. Because of the job that I had at that time, I did have the international calling plan. So we're on safari in our glamorous tent. It's 2 a.m. in the morning and my phone is buzzing. And so I pick it up and I go into another room and answer it. And it's the recruiting firm calling to tell me that I'd been selected to be a finalist. And she then tells me when the interviews will take
Oh,
place.
no.
And I said, "Well, the first day, I'm still out of the country. We fly home from South Africa to Tampa that night. So I guess I'm not interviewing that night." I said, "So I will not be interviewing the second day either because I will just still be." We were in South Africa for the first day. Second day, we were flying home. I said, "I guess I'm on the third day." And she said, "Yes." So we fly back to Tampa. We get back there about 11 a.m. We go home, pack another suitcase, leave Tampa at 6, but our flight is delayed. By the time we get to Atlanta, our flight to Columbia has left.
Oh, no.
So, being both that we are both military,
Mhm.
we go into what we call military mode. We rent a car. We drive 3 hours at leaving midnight
Oh,
from the
gosh.
Atlanta airport.
Yeah.
We get to Columbia around 3 a.m., 3 somewhere in there. No luggage. Check into the hotel, find the 24-hour CVS so I could have a brush and some makeup.
Yep, yep.
We then go to Walmart at 6 a.m. to find some clothes. I have to buy a man's blue shirt, men's blue pants, a belt, a pair of shoes, a 99-cent bandana to tie around my neck. I look like a Delta flight attendant. And my interview starts at 7:30
In the
that
morning?
morning.
No. Oh, gosh.
I interviewed for the first half of the day in that outfit. My husband picked up our luggage at the airport, brought it to me at lunchtime because the first flight out of Atlanta to Columbia was at 10 a.m.
Wow.
And then I change in the interim superintendent's office into my suit, and I interview in the in the suit for the rest of the day, and we leave the area at about 9:30 that night. So with about 3 hours of sleep in an outfit that definitely was not what I would consider to
No.
be
Yeah.
interview worthy,
Yeah.
um, I got the job.
And you got the job. I love it.
I got the
I
job.
love it.
God showed up.
Yeah.
And so it's experiences like that that I like to share with ladies because during that time, there were some tears, there was some frustration, there was some yelling, there was some, "I'm just not going to do it," to at the end of it, before I walked out the door to go to the interview, "I got this. I'm just going to be who I am. And if they like it, they'll hire me. If they don't, I know God will open another door for me."
There you go.
And
There
so
you go.
that roller coaster of emotion, that roller coaster of experience, I tied my success in doing that back to everything that I've done from my careers that gave me the confidence to then be able to walk in there
Mhm.
in my Walmart finest
Mhm. And
and,
make it happen.
and make it happen.
I love that. I'm seeing a trend in your life of focus, make it happen, align with purpose, your faith, your relationship with your husband and family and the priorities there, leadership, amazing threads to your life. And I can say, I can't wait to read the book, but I can say, I hope that you include those moments and those stories and those lessons. And I hope you do more of it. I think you've got probably a lot more in you. With as busy a life as you're leading and the impact you're making. But boy, that just kind of sums it up for me. The challenge is there. It's not going to stop you. You're
Well,
going to go right
thank you.
through it.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. If people want to find you or learn more about you, where would you suggest they go? A website or social media?
So people can find me by going to my website. It's kimdmoore.com. And once they're there, they can connect to all of the social media platforms that I'm on.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you made it in and came in to spend time with us and share your lessons and share about your life. And I love the confidence and I love all of the ingredients that make you who you are. And I hope to have you back. Hope we do more together. I could almost see you taking a lot of these lessons, of course, and to reach the scale and to reach the masses because you're a great communicator as well.
Well, thank you. I am developing a master class because I want to make sure that people can actually work through the process and apply the strategies that I'm teaching them through the book. But I appreciate your encouragement.
Yes.
And I am going to work on the second book. I'm taking a short breather, but I do plan to write another book.
Love it. I love it. Well, thanks again for coming. Thanks for being here. And you got to come back.
Thank
Got to
you.
come back. All right,
I
up high. We're going to do a
appreciate
high five. All right. There we go.